I wanted to speak briefly about important research that came to light last week but did not receive the coverage it deserved. The Australian was one of the few publications to report that a major study of domestic violence shows it is significantly linked to alcohol and poverty, contradicting government policy focusing on gender equality as the key to eradicating the problem. The Australian Institute of Criminology research included data from 39 other studies on domestic violence and concluded violence was concentrated among a relatively small group of repeat offenders and in more disadvantaged areas. That's strange because for years we've been told the key to eradicating violence against women is to promote gender equality. Everything from risque jokes to gendered toys to the gender wage gap has been linked to gender inequality and hence to gender violence. Governments have squandered valuable resources on groups pushing those notions, as well as some truly awful and ineffective ad campaigns. How much more effective would those resources have been if they were focused on communities where domestic violence is endemic? How many more women would be saved if the funds were used to provide options for at-risk women and children? For too long, we've allowed activists using junk research to hijack efforts to combat the scourge of domestic violence. And it really is a scourge that sees one woman killed every week on average in Australia. Head of Violence Prevention and Addiction Studies at Deakin University, Peter Miller, told The Australian that instead of focusing on poverty or alcohol, authorities are preoccupied with gender equality and respectful attitudes. Mr. Miller said, "I haven't seen any evidence that that's a solution to violence. The system is broken and we need a better response. We don't need another TV ad about gender equality." Hallelujah. But Australia's peak body on violence against women, the National Resource Organisation for Women's Safety, identifies gender equality as pivotal to reducing violence. Another taxpayer-funded group, Our Watch, also pushes the notion that violence against women is primarily driven by gender inequality. And to combat violence, we must challenge gender stereotypes and roles. It's those same Feminism 101 theories based on ideology and gender theory instead of verifiable evidence that have seen the development of the respectful relationships curriculum that is now in our schools, where children are taught about male privilege and that gender norms are purely a social construct that can lead to discrimination and acceptance of gender-based violence. Of course, violence against women occurs in every community, in every income category and in every suburb. But it's false to pretend that it impacts every group equally. The statistics show a strong correlation between domestic violence and poverty and alcohol abuse. And we know that the problem is at epidemic proportions in some Indigenous communities, where women are about 35 times more likely to be hospitalised due to domestic violence than other Australian women. And yet last year, Our Watch blamed colonisation for the high rates of abuse suffered by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women and children. That type of twisted thinking cannot be allowed to infect efforts to overcome this most important of issues.